Hey, I hope you guys can hear me. This is the Mad Reaper signing in on a Sunday night, Monday morning. Um, I wanted to do a little Q&A to try to share some of my knowledge and answer some of the questions that I've been getting a lot of. So here's my attempt at it. I had to rock the Pentagon Junior mask. He's my favorite. So let's get to it. All right. So the first question comes from a Casey. What's up? It says, why are your figures so dang expensive? I could see maybe $50 because you have to make each one with your own material and all on your own, but $115 and $150 are really expensive for a figure. You're right. $150 is a lot of money for a figure, and I guess my philosophy behind it is the parts. The parts dictate a lot of what the figure is, but not only the parts. I don't want to go on any tangents here, so I might, but one of my big inspirations is like NECA and McFarlane, and now I collect Hot Toys. I love like 6 scale, highly realistic figures. So to me, I don't want to say like they're pieces of art, but to me, like the parts for like this Pentagon figure, like let's break him down here. This is my head cast, so I save money the more I do. This is a Devon torso. This is a Diego arms. These are Road Dog legs, so like 40, 20, 10. And that's just $70 into the parts that break down to make this figure. Now I gotta consider the tattoos, and the tattoos are a good $10 each. I mean, I get a lot of tattoos, so I guess they come in sets of two, so it's about $10 each for a figure. So I mean, once you're looking at that, it's about $80 without any work involved. So I think $70 is a pretty fair price for the amount of time I spend on them with paint. This isn't my day job. This is what I do purely for fun. But in addition to that, wrestling figures aren't the only thing that I do. I do some sculpting. I do some big traditional painting. You see the big Joker behind me, that's mine. You might be able to see the Connor off to this distance. I sculpted him from scratch and casted a couple of them, so he's a first statue that I'm going to be making. It's going to be pretty cool. So getting back on course here, the big thing is that like for me, it takes a lot of time. Vampiro is the most difficult. My Vampiro customs are highly tattooed, highly realistic painted. The skin tone, I'm sure you guys have all seen it. Thank you guys for following me. But if you guys check out the torso picture, that's my Vampiro skin tone before I even apply any tattoos. And you can see like the freckles, you can see the skin depth, and all that comes from an airbrush. So for me, $70 for my time is worth it. And each custom takes me, I don't know, like more than a day. I work on a couple at a time, so I always tell my customers 2 to 3 weeks. And without getting off course either, I think that a lot of the young talent also sells themselves short. So I think like when you're doing a $50 custom, that's what you're getting is a $50 custom. Now, granted, like if you're just gonna use these for a pick fed and use them for your collection and play with them, then that's fine. But I think one of the coolest compliments I got the other day was that it's even better than what Mattel's doing, and that's the best thing I like to hear because that's exactly what I try to do. I think Mattel, while they're a lot more active than Jakks were with their figures, and that's when I used to be into customizing, they still like are very they leave a lot to be desired with the skin tone and the painting and such. So that's where I come in, and I like to really mix in some complicated techniques, some different styles, and try to make it as close to like a Hot Toy figure in a 12th scale format that you can. So hopefully that answered your question. So you're right, they are expensive, but I think they're worth it. And any of you guys that get one, you guys will know it's worth it too. But this also leaves me with the next point. I am going to be coming out with a basic line of my Pentagon 0M, the gold attire figures. which I've been able to produce a little cheaper since they only need one road dog basic. So by cutting my cost from 70 to $10-15, it's going to be a lot better. That being said, I may be fiddling around with the new head sculpt. I'm not sure yet, but you'll get the same attention to paint detail as you would on my Elite figures. So my point is to try to have everyone get as much of my work as possible, anyone who wants it, because that's what it is at the end of the day. You know, this is art, and I want you guys to dig it. So next question. Elite Collector, I got this one for you. His work is freaking amazing, and you get what you pay for. Customs aren't cheap, buddy. Awesome. Thanks, Elite. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think time add up. Materials do. I use an airbrush. I use high quality auto paints, which I'll get into another question here. And I don't skimp on any materials. I get whatever I need to get the job done. You know, I think when I was younger in my career, I had just recently started getting back into customizing like March of this year. But before that, I used to do it when I was like 12, 14, and I would cut corners. I would I would use whatever I could just to get the job done. So now I'm 27, so now like I use whatever it takes to get the job done right, and that means getting whatever tool I need. And so I think because of that, my work's improved a lot more. So cool. Next question, Falcon Customs. Hey, how you doing, man? How do you go about making the custom packaging? So this is to lay the premise down for this answer. Back when I used to do customs in like 01, 03, there was a guy that really took me under his wing and explained a lot, and that was Brian Beatty. And I don't know, all the new guys probably don't know who he is, but for me, he was a big idol when I first got into customizing. So now that I've started again, I really wanted to kind of do a throwback to the type of customs he used to do. So I first of all, I get a Star Wars Protect case for like the old school 70s Star Wars figures, and that looks like just this. You can reseal it. They come in quantities of 10, 40, whatever. And I really dig them because for me, I'm also like a collector. So I collect a lot of mock figures, and for me, I like having a place to display my customs, and what better way than in a box, and that I can take out and play with them, or I can put back and they're good as new. Originally I had wanted to do like the Elite style packaging with the graphics, and then I realized I was really sacrificing my vision just to try to match what Mattel had already designed, and I wasn't digging that, so I went back to square one, and I found this Protect Star Wars packaging. They're just sealable cases, and then what I do is I save all the vacuum form wraps, or all the vacuum form molds from all my figures that I buy. And so I got cases of Mattel boxes just full of these plastic wraps, because I try to make the figures in scale, so that makes it so tough, you know, depending on who I'm trying to package. But so I use that, I cut that to size. The graphics, the cards on the inside. So I have an iPad that I do a lot of graphic designing on, and for me, it kind of starts with the vision of like, okay, what kind of packaging am I going for? There was a early Pentagon wallpaper with like this black and red spiral background that really inspired me, that I was like, hey, that's sweet. I'm a big fan of like the Grindhouse work and huge Lucha Underground fan, so for me it was like that would be how I'd like to buy a Lucha Underground figure. So that's where that started at. And so I measured it for this backing card piece, which is I think like 6x9, and I designed it on my iPad. I'd go ahead and do the graphics and print that out on a cardstock, like the thickest cardstock I could find, not like super thick, but like thick enough to where when I cut it and like glue it to another piece, it becomes somewhat solid, you know? So for me, I designed the back, then I designed the front, and then I glue them together, the glue stick, and let them dry, get them hard, and then put them in there. I cut the corners a little bit so they fit inside this packaging. This is my new Penta 0M packaging. I think it's really cool. If you like zoom in here, I guess I'm running the camera. I don't know why I'm telling someone else to zoom in. But if you look right here, you kind of see you see the let's see, Kmart stickers. I wanted it to look like an old figure that was on the shelf for years and got discounted and worn up, and the card got wrecked, and because that was kind of what my feel was with this special edition. Anyways, sorry for going off on another tangent. Then the name card is like a 5x5 piece that I fold and hang on the bottom. Each one of these, I have like the series number, my website. And that's another thing. Like, I feel like a lot of the like young customizers don't like make customs in packages, or like they're not very collector friendly, and I think you need to know your market. Like for me, I'm charging $150 a figure. I better have a way to display that figure without its paint app getting ruined. So for me, packaging was necessary. Plus, I want this to look more, legit. And it was a throwback to Beatty. And if you guys haven't heard of him, check out his work. Like, it's out there. You have to like scour the internet. But back in the day, this guy was doing the custom head sculpts and stuff on his figures with custom packaging, and they were going for like $700 back in the day. And my customs were going for $150 back then too. So, anyways, hope that answers your question. If not, let's do a follow-up. Rocket Jabroni Customs. What are your recommendations for Airbrush? What type of paint do you use? Awesome question. For me, I'm a big fan of Airbrush. I'm relatively new into it. I started off with a Iwata Neo, N-E-O, and that was a cool brush. Oh, here it is actually. That was a pretty cool brush, and it's a good starter brush, and it served me throughout like my first Conor McGregor statue. I find it like, since it's like a Chinese made brush, it wasn't as like durable with the needle, and so I'd always have to get like replacement needles. So that's a good one to start off with, and that was like $99 or even less. I think it was like $49. I got a part of a package deal, which I went to Dick Blick for the package starter bundle. It came with like this little air compressor over here. I can't lift it up. It's like stuck to the wires won't let it go. But it's this like little Iwata air compressor, and that's IWATA. It came within this like, little bundle, and since Dick Blick has always got like discounts, I was able to get it at a really good deal and jump into airbrushing. That being said, now I've upgraded to an Iwata Eclipse, and for me, this thing has been a beauty. Like, I wish I would have done it earlier. This is an awesome airbrush. Now this one's like made by Iwata in Japan, so this airbrush, really is a workhorse. And it's got like a big cup. It's got like, my needle's got no problem. And this is a gravity feed one. I always use gravity feed ones. I feel like, for me at least, being a newbie last year to airbrush, my thought was like siphon feed. I'm not really sure like the physics of that, how it works. So I wanted to use a gravity feed, since I know if I thin down my paints enough, it should be spraying out. And so that's the brush I use now. You can also get it at Hobby Lobby, which, if you guys do, make sure you guys look on your phone for their discounts, because I ended up getting this one from Hobby Lobby, and it was actually cheaper after I already had the air compressor with the discount. So then it would be on Dick Blick. But yeah, it's an awesome brush. I dig it. So if you're like wanting to jump into it and you're gonna be airbrushing or doing customs a lot, I would actually recommend the Eclipse. And the Eclipse is like, I think, the most you need for like our applications. But like the guys in the hobby painting, like the miniature painting world, they also use Eclipse in their workhorses. So if you want like the most, what's the right word? The most reliable one, I would say Iwata Eclipse. But for me, I've heard great things about other brands too. I prefer Iwata. I was enrolled in like that Stan Winston school for character arts, and all the artists on there that I looked up to and the sculptors all rocked Iwatas. So for me, that's the brand I tried. What type of paint do you use? So this is a multi-layered question for like my brushing and Citadel and stuff, but I'm assuming this is for the airbrush. And for me, I started off with this Createx colors, which they're like highly pigmented. Tim Gore's bloodline, like from like the Hollywood industry. Tim Gore is an amazing special effects artist, and these are illustration colors. They're acrylics, but they also cure to be really hard, like like an automotive paint. So you can also use these on cars. So for this one, I got the Bloodline pack, and that provides like little different tones of the colors already mixed. So for me, Createx is a great brand. I use their normal Createx colors too. It's just like the best, I think, highly pigmented paint, and I find that it sticks better on the plastic. I think the more diluted your paint is doesn't mean it's bad, but like it won't stick onto your figure unless you've really primed it or anything, and I prefer not to. Excuse me. Primers just don't go as planned for me for some reason, and it's just another step. So whatever. My other ones that I like to do, especially for my flesh tones, is GarageKits.us. I love their flesh tone line. They got, Garage Kit flesh, pale flesh, bronze flesh, semi-transparent flesh, African American flesh, bright flesh, transparent blood, like all these different kinds over here. And for me, like when I'm painting a flesh tone, this is usually what you see me do after I mix it a little bit with the Createx paint, because I want it to stick. This is so diluted, you don't even need a reducer, which is like, a little agent that makes your paint a little thinner, like a flow improver. You could use water too, but I prefer to use that. It retards the curing, so it makes it last a little longer and not dry up in your needle when you're shooting it through your airbrush. But so Garage Kits, I really dig them too. For my first coat, I always go with some Createx and Garage Kit to try to get the paint to stick first, and then more coats and more coats. But it dries really fast. That's the other good benefit about an airbrush. Not only do you have like a flawless application, it dries really fast. And then just recently, I've been really digging Reaper paints. Fitting enough. I got them because of the name at first, but their colors are amazing. It comes in like this little MSP bottle. They got fair highlights, and these are actually pigmented enough to brush on right out of the bottle, and they look awesome. Like my latest Pentagon boots with the white were done with this Reaper Paints white, and my blacks are done with this pure black, which is actually like the best black I've ever used. Honestly, like it kicks the shit out of any other black, like honestly. But anyways, so that's what I like to use for my airbrush, and those Reaper paints are really what I like to use lately. All right, sorry, this is like nearing 19, 20 minutes, so I'm gonna wrap up here. Patrick, what's up, bro? How do you go about choosing from all the awesome talent in Lucha Underground? That's tough. I ask you, I like to hear my customers and my friends' opinion. Like, what do you guys think would be cool? For me, my first was like my favorites. So my first ones had to be Prince Puma. He held the belt for the majority of the first season. Spoiler alert. And then Pentagon. Pentagon's badass. And Mil Mertes. Like, I think Mil is like the ultimate bad guy. So for me, that was Series 1. Series 2 is Phoenix, because I've always wanted to make Phoenix too, but Pentagon's my favorite. And then, plus those two also remind me of me and my brother. And then Vampiro. Vampiro was my favorite way back in like WCW. I always liked guys in face paint, so for me, Vamp was a must-have. And then Cage, Cage is like one of my favorite wrestlers. After the Ultimate Lucha match versus him and Mac, those two instantly like shot up here on my radar, because those guys stole the show and they were the opening act. So if you guys haven't watched Lucha Underground, watch Ultimate Lucha 1 on Netflix, or even Google this and watch Cage vs. Mac. You guys will be a fan. It's the greatest wrestling product out there in my opinion, and Cage is an awesome dude. which leads me to season 3. Drago is going to be in there. Son of Havoc's going to be in there. And I think now we're pretty confident. I actually talked to Pat about this. We're going to be going head with Willie Mack. So that will be cool because now you can have a Cage and Mac battle. So that's all I'm going to reveal for now. Patrick, is Cage getting a figure your proudest custom moment? Yeah, absolutely. For now, like, I guess for me, like, when I was younger, when I was like 14 and first into customs, the thought of someone paying like 150 for a custom for mine was amazing. Back then I was really known for doing Hayabusas, and I'll probably end up doing him again now that I finally kind of got a good part mix in my head. But lately, yeah, Vamp retweeting it was really cool. But man, Cage is awesome. And when I woke up to my DM on Instagram and he's like, "Hey, did all those figures sell out?" I knew it was going to be a start of a cool friendship and communication. And we've been talking since. Even the video I posted yesterday with the music, like, he wanted to check that out. He's just an awesome dude, and I'm a fan. So it helps. It's a no-brainer for me. Like, Cage, I think, not only stole a show in Ultimate Lucha, I think he also stole the show in my second series, and that's saying a lot because, like, Vamp's pretty badass, and so is Phoenix. So, anyways, for now, yes. Wait until he posts a video of his. It's gonna be cool. So, pre-Dagon Dark. Hey, what's up, bro? Like, man, we've had some good conversations too. Both Pentagon fans, huge Pentagon fans. Here we go. How do you go about sealing figures and painting skin tones? So for me, painting skin tones, it depends on what my base is. Like, if I'm painting a Phoenix or a Pentagon, I'm going to try to hit Mattel's Mexican looking color, you know, like the little darker tan. And for me, that requires, like, to me to kind of start tweaking my thought process. For me, it starts with a base of like fairly normal Caucasian color, and then it's about adding in the tones that, like, on a color wheel and color theory, will be reflective of the figure. So for me, this is a secret weapon, and this is worth the video. If you've been watching for now and you want to find out, like, how does he paint Devon torsos to match those arms, it's this. Raw Sienna. Like, Raw Sienna and Burnt Umber are like every artist's hidden talent. Like, for me, when I'm distressing something, when I'm making like six scale stands and I want to make it distressed, Burnt Umber, Raw Sienna. Specifically here, if you mix some Raw Sienna with a Caucasian tone and like olive, bronze skin, normal flesh, you start to get this tone. And here you can't even tell. This part is painted because Devon is not this color. And these arms are from a Diego. And they almost match flawlessly. I say almost because I'm never completely happy, but yeah. So for me, it looks to the color of it. So for skin, like, if something's looking a little too flat and cold, I always want to add in a little bit of, like, in our bodies, red, like, to make our skin pop. So I always like try to figure out a way to add like a little drop of red. You know, I try to make enough of a batch of it so that I can dilute it or add to it without having to, like, go back to the drawing board altogether. So my skin tones, when I paint them, I've followed. There's a couple tutorials on, like, the Stan Winston School and YouTube that I've really found helpful. For me, like, now kind of going to a triad system, like what Reaper paints has for their airbrushing, and Citadel has a version of it too, although they don't say it. It kind of starts with, like, the flat base, and for me, I go first and foremost just the base tone, and that often looks really flat, but it's got good coverage. That's like your medium tones. Then I go with a shadow, and I usually shoot the figure with my airbrush from underneath, from the shadow. So for Vamp here, I would have gone all in this olive tone, and then from after I paint all of the figure, even his head, I shoot it with the darker tone, the shadows, and if you don't have another paint for that, all you have to do is add like a little bit of a dark brown, burnt umber, and just a little bit, and just darken that tone up a little bit. Right, not black. Black's too powerful, but like a dark tone, like a dark brown, will darken it up enough. And now I go from underneath where the shadows would fall. So I'd get under his pectorals, I'd get under his arms, and really focus on those areas, and then just lightly spray over the top. If I'm painting, I probably wouldn't paint as much up on top, but what I would do is dilute it a lot with a lot of water, and kind of just have it blend up from, you know, this part doing the shadows and up here. Now I wouldn't like go fully on it, like these are really transparent layers, just to create like that layered effect. And then what I do is go for my highlights. So that is by my base, then adding white. So you got your base color for the shadows, add a dark brown or a black, but stay away from black. Add a dark brown, so you get your darker version of that. Then from back to your base to get your highlight, you add a white. And so that ends up reflecting the light. So for me, if I shoot from down here for my shadows, I'm going to shoot from up here for my highlights. And so your shoulders, over here, your traps, and top of your head will all be a lighter tone because of the colors, even before there's a light source placed on it. Then at that point, what I like to do is with the airbrush, and this is, you can get away with it with a brush, and I'll show you guys how here, real quick. So for me, I dilute like a brown, usually a burnt umber or raw sienna, or if I'm feeling like really fancy, I'll do a little bit of both. And for me, or in this case, I got a REAPER flesh wash, which is like amazing. I turn down the air compressor, or turn on the pressure on my air compressor, excuse me, and spray it from a distance so that it kind of gets a fine mist. So that will be like my freckles, and I'll go over from a different distance, a little closer, and get in the shadows, just so that way you really see like this layered little dots on the skin. On a brush, what you could do is use the brush and get it really diluted, really watered down, and then flick it like this all over the figure. Your splatters are going to be a little more uneven, but if you do this a couple times on your palette and then go on the figure, what you're going to get is essentially little flickering spots. And if you do that with that diluted number, it's really going to make your skin tone look more layered. And because of that, you'll kind of get what I'm going with an airbrush. That's kind of my finishing layer before I seal it, which my sealer of choice is Mod Podge, the spray. So I like it's called matte. It's definitely not matte. It's like more satin to gloss. My first spray is that Mod Podge spray. I got it at Hobby Lobby. It's great. I don't have it here in front of me, but that's always my first coat. It's great. Let it dry. Usually do 1-2 coats, and then I use my Tester's Dull Coat, which is my final one, to kind of knock back down that shine, make it look matte like it should be. And to me, that's my final coat. That's it. So in joint rub areas, if it's an area that I've completely like painted that may chip, I sand it down beforehand, which is a big plus, and then I use a super glue trick. And the super glue trick is putting a layer of super glue on that joint area, putting down a layer of super glue on that joint to act like as a layer of protection, and you let that dry, and once it moves, the super glue acts like a thick, unstoppable layer of protection over those joints. I should show you guys that in a video in the future, and I will, but I think for now, this one's nearing half hour. Actually, this camera cut out on me, so for this explanation part 2, I had to restart it. Hope you guys digged it. Thank you for all the questions. This was fun. We'll do this again in the future. Maybe get some other customizers on here. I think it'd be pretty cool to like share the knowledge and help this hobby get elevated up to the next level. So till then, see you guys later. Peace.